So if you signed up for your first 70.3 and are not sure about what to do about race day nutrition, great. I'm going to talk you through exactly what you need to eat, when you need to eat, and how you need to eat. So at the end of it, you'll have all the pieces of information you need to form your own individual race day strategy that will mean you will nail it. My name is Steve Moody. I'm an Ironman U certified coach, and I have 14 or so 70.3s done and 2 world championships. So a lot of info, and I'm hoping to share it with you to make your race day experience absolutely a belter. So let's get to it. All right. Okay. So key thing with 70.3 nutrition is you have to remember it starts well before race day. You don't just turn up on the day and start smashing in 20 Maurten gels and hope for the best. You need to practice what you're going to eat and how you're going to eat it long before you actually turn up to the race venue. This is what a key skill we talk about in the build phase, where you get more race specific in your training. There is no silver biscuit / bullet. Despite what the marketing guys will tell you, you don't have to eat Maurten gels. You don't have to eat their food, their power bars, etc. Everyone's different. You got to try and experiment to figure out exactly what works for you. And this is how I'm going to go through this. I'm going to talk a very common sense rather than was it black and white approach to nutrition. Essentially, I'm going to talk about how many calories you need to take in board to keep your body fueled up to make sure you last from your 1.9 swim, your 90K bike, and your half marathon. And this is always going to be different, again, to individuals because it's a function of how long you're going to be out there. The mid-packers are going to be out there longer, and therefore they need more fuel. The size of an athlete, if you're a bigger unit, you're going to need more calories, and that's just simple metabolism. Okay, so types of food, and again, this is where I said this really individual. You got to there's no point in me telling you you must eat this bar or you must eat this gel. It's not going to work. I don't know your stomach. You do. This is where you come in. But these are type of things that I have tried, and maybe you will actually check out yourself. Pre-race, and again, we'll talk about the timing of your pre-race meal to make sure you've actually fueled up as much as possible. My go-to stuff are bagels, which are to around 250 calories, porridge between 200 calories, depending on the size of the portion. Bananas, always good with potassium as well. Those are things I would consider using pre-race as part of my breakfast. You might something different, but now start looking at the calories and how much you're getting in. Race day, and we'll talk about this per discipline, mainly in the bike and the run. You've got to figure out how you're going to fuel, and I'm going to tell you exactly how much you need in the next sections, how many calories you need per hour, and then you figure out what you like, what it works for you, and how it actually pops into your diet. Honey stinger bars I've used, 200 calories in a bar. Dates, remember, it doesn't have to be processed food. It doesn't have to be a gel. It doesn't have to be a power bar. That's just the marketing guys speaking. If you want to eat natural foods, dates, 20. I've guys who've used small baked potatoes and just a bit of salt on. Carbs, calories, as in salt, perfect. Gel options I always talk about because they tend to be feature heavily on the run. The other stuff, again, and take this into account, you need to take it, how are you going to transport the fuel with you? On the bike is a little bit easier. You have your bento boxes on the front of the bike, and you can have your pockets at the back of your tri-suit or your cycle suit. But on the run, it's a little bit more limited. So that's where I tell guys to mainly focus on gels. Again, the gels that you can have, I use high five gels. Maurten gels are more prevalent on the Ironman branded courses. And again, a pro tip here, if you can trial the food, find out what's going to be on the course and trial it out in advance, that means you're actually a little bit more reassured that if you have a problem with nutrition, you drop your food in T1 or you drop something falls off the bike, you can always rely 100% on the aid stations and not just for partially what they're on offer. So always trial what's going to be on the course. That's a pro tip. Maurten gels, again, a little bit more calories in than the high five, but I find the consistency is a bit different. Again, this is why you try this, as on the high five that bind the more liquidy and go in easier. Maurten gels are a bit more like the old classic jelly and ice cream. May not work for your stomach. one of my go-to options for both full and half distance is Clif Bloxs, and there's a reason here. It kind of sums up all the things I'm talking about. You need to have something that's easy to transport. As you can see, they're very easy, and that's 30 calories. So I know they all go into my bento box. They don't melt, they don't get stuck, and they're very easy to put in the mouth and transport as I'm cycling. I know that there's six in a packet, so therefore that's 6 by 30, 180, and I'm going to be aiming for 320 calories per hour. I need to consume 2 of these per kind of hour on the bike. If I'm going to be a 3-hour bike, there you go, 6 packets. So these are options. And by the way, I have links in the comments below about these products on Amazon. I strongly recommend you try some of these. As I said, you've got to see what works for you. I cannot put a gun to your head and say, listen, you got to use Bloxs. I would recommend you try them. I would recommend you try the different gels so you don't have any shocks on race day. And you know from your long practice training rides, actually, I was well fueled that time. My stomach didn't feel as sick as it did the other day. Maybe that's my food stuff. It might be anything. Fig rolls, honey stinger bars, dates, potatoes, all very individual. Please try and make sure you find it. But again, always be aware of the calories that are in each portion. So that's when we bring to the strategy, which we're going to talk to a bit now. Now, again, so that's what you're going to do in your training and your build phase. But there's also the pre-race, a couple of days before the race, and the morning of, which we're going to talk about as well. First thing first, I would say, ignore the old, old wives' tale that everyone has to carbo load and actually kind of eat their body weight in pasta or potatoes. This is a kind of an old kind of approach to, endurance nutrition that came out of the marathon training guys. It doesn't really work. All you're going to do really is, if you eat so much, you're going to feel bloated. You're not going to feel comfortable in the days leading up. So what I recommend is you eat 10 to 15% more than you would normally. Don't eat anything massively different. Again, if you don't eat pasta all the time, why suddenly eat spag ball because everyone else is? It might turn your stomach. It's all about food you like, food you know you can digest. This guy overdid it. He had too much pasta, and also probably could have kept off the wine a couple of days before the race. Some people will do the approach and just flagging this. You might want to try it, might not want to try it. People avoid roughage on the few days before the race, because they want to limit their chance of having to visit the Portaloo of hell by having a bowel movement. Can work, may not work. For me personally, I just like to use a cup of coffee in the morning, and that helps move everything. And I have my last bowel movement before I leave for the race in a nice hotel toilet. Again, everyone's individual. Some people will avoid caffeine in the lead of the race day, because what they do is then they'll take a caffeine gel on the run or on the bike, and they find that gives them a boost. An option you got to try in advance of the race and see, actually, that week I stayed off the coffee. I had a caffeine gel on my long run on a Saturday. Boom, it worked. Worth trying, but not new on race day. In the morning, you need to plan your race day fueling from around 4 hours from the swim start. So if your swim starts at 7, you are thinking about kind of, was it fueling up between 3 and 4? I get up early, I get some fuel on board. I might have another nap if I'm close to the swim start, etc. But normally plan for a very early start and plan to have your standard breakfast. Pro tip here is make sure you bring if you like a particular brand of porridge or oats or typical type of bagels, bring them with you. Don't expect that the hotel will be there or the local shops or supermarkets will have it, because otherwise it'll be a bit of a disaster when you're looking for it and can't find it. Okay, so we're now going to go into the meat and drink of how you take the information I've given you here, like the building blocks, into your race day strategy. But before we do, a quick polite request. If you haven't already, could you please hit the subscribe button and let me know that, and then it'll help me grow my channel and give cool athletes like you more content. And also, it's good so far, so let's have a little thumbs up, and it's only going to get better. Okay. So, and final tip there, as in, make sure on race day you always have carrying a water bottle. You're carrying some sort of fuel with you so you can nibble, just in case you to deal with those nerves, nervous energy. Oh, I'm feeling hungry. That's not a great look. All right. Okay. So our swim, as you can see, there's not an awful lot you can do nutrition wise in the swim. So what I recommend to guys, my athletes, is that you have a kind of pre-go time gel just in your wetsuit and all the rest, and you just take it just before you go and bin it as you go, and then swim and get through the 1.9K, and then possibly have some sort of treat that you can look forward to in your blue bag, your transition bag, and something that you won't get on the course, so you're not going to eat. Maybe a croissant, maybe a particular type of chocolate bar. It's up to you. What would make you feel look forward to something coming out of the water, and use it as almost like a mental pick-me-up. Okay, real sort of part of the fueling strategy starts when you're actually leaving T1 and getting on the bike. In terms of what their calorific intake or carbs intake per hour, you should be aiming between 60 to 90 grams of carbs, or roughly 240 to 360 calories. Again, that's a big wide range, I know, but as I said at the start, this depends on how long you're going to be on the bike and your size. Bigger people aim for the top end of the range. I typically aim for around 300 calories an hour, and I'd be kind of a medium-sized athlete, I presume. Couple of things as said, when you're, and this is where your practice will come in, you need to be able to be picking food types that are easily transportable, like go straight into the bento box and all the rest, or go back again. This is where your blocks are nice and handy. As I said, they just stick very easy, and you pop them straight in your mouth, and there's not an awful lot of chewing or work, and they're not going to be affected too much by the heat. You'll learn all this stuff in the practice. But remember, the body can absorb more calories on the bike due to the lower heart rate in general. So you'll see that there's that affects how we actually try to keep on top of our nutrition. Fueling is key as well, especially on races where it's going to be a little bit hotter and all that. But do remember, your body can only really maximally absorb around a liter of water or liquid an hour. So make sure you're keeping on top of your liquids. Also have a strategy in terms of when you're going to eat. For me, it can be either by distance or time, and you need to keep rigid on that. So I tend to eat every 10 kilometers into a bike, and I have my Garmin set up for the alarm to go off for every 10 kilometers. That reminds me I have to eat something. And again, it might be 2 blocks or whatever I've worked out in my strategy. There's a video actually in the links below about how you actually set up those alerts, because you can set one up for eating and you can set one up for actually drinking. I typically will drink every 15 to 20 minutes, just take a sip of something and all the rest, and I'll try to build that into the aid stations. I know when I'm going to pass an aid station. Again, if it's a hot day, typically there's 2 effects. Mainly it takes away your feeling of hunger. You've got it. This is why the alerts are key. You've got to stick on them. Regardless, even if you don't feel hungry, you've got to get the food into you. If it is hot and you're seeing a lot of white residue on your tri-suit, that means you're losing a lot of salts. And that would mean that you need to get on board some more electrolytes in terms of ESO or Lucozade or Gatorade tends to be on the Ironman courses. Make sure you're bringing that on board. And even if your water bottles are full, take a water bottle, and if it's a hot day, pour it on your head, pour it down your neck. Use it to keep your core temperature down, because that will be your enemy on the day. Again, as I said, the amount of electrolytes you need to take on board in terms of your ESO and your Gatorade will be a function of your sweat rate. If you are a very sweaty person, you need to take on more of that. And there's also carbohydrates and calories in those drinks as well. So that's an added bonus. Okay, so also key thing to remember, you're also fueling for the run. So it's not a case of you're just fueling for the bike. You need to have enough glycogen, our body's natural energy, built up from the fuel you've taken on board, the good keeping on top of your nutrition, that you'll have energy in there, because you want to avoid what we call the bonk. A bonk is not as sexy as it sounds, depending on your colloquialisms, but it's when you actually run out of energy and your body starts shutting down and you don't have any energy to turn the pedals, you don't have any energy to run and move the feet forward. You see people walking in the run, they've bonked. And why they bonked is they didn't have the fuel on board ahead. Okay, so we've fueled up on the run, on the bike, and all the rest we've kept on top. Now we're on the run stage. A couple of things change here. As also, if you remember, you're now using all your body weight to propel yourself forward, not just being on an actual bicycle. The body is under a little bit more duress now because we've actually been stuffing it full of food already, and our heart rate is a little bit more elevated because, as I said, we're now running and we're actually vertical. So we're heart rate needs to work harder. So we limit the amount of calories we take on per hour, and we also change the type. This, when your body's under a bit more GI distress, or sort of like it has to work harder to get the food around, it's better to go more liquidy options. This is why I tell guys, hit up the gels and move away from solids, because also you don't need, it's harder to transport stuff on the run. Remember that, as I said, there will be lots of gels and water aid stations. A key thing in 70.3 racing is never miss an aid station. Typically they're around 2.5 to 3 kilometers apart, as in make sure you always get something from them. I do some videos in the comments below about how to use a bike aid station, how to use a run aid station without losing too much momentum, because your stopping is your enemy. You need to keep moving forward, and that's moving steadily through an aid station, making sure you're taking on board the right amount of fuel, keeping your core temperature, keeping your hydration up. The fuels, again, you've got to drink to ahead of your thirst, ahead of your dehydration. You should always be sipping something, even if it doesn't feel at time. Just make sure you take one of the cups, sip of water, pour it on your head. You're working on keeping your core temperature down and keeping your hydration levels up. So sip little and often, because you don't want to whack in around a whole bottle from an aid station, and then you suddenly have this sloshing feeling in your stomach. That will cause GI distress. Okay, so key takeaways, and I don't mean the type of takeaways we all like. These are the key things you need to pull together in terms of building your nutrition strategy. You've got to practice this beforehand. You can't just suddenly turn up and start implementing something on race day. Because you're not only practicing what food types work for you, was it how your energy reacts to certain food types, etc. You're building up skills of eating and drinking on the move. That's making sure you know where the food is. Was it you come off the aero bars, you take some food in. You're practicing if you've got a front-mounted hydration system, or if you even take something as simple as taking a water bottle out of the cage and drinking as you go. These are skills that need to be practiced, worked in, and bet into yourself on your long training rides and on your long runs. It's all about finding what works for you. As I said, I'm not going to sit here and tell you have to eat honey stinger bars. I'm not going to tell you here you have to eat bananas. Work it out for yourself. This is the trial and error. This is why you use it in your build time. You go, actually, I really like the Maurten gels. The high five didn't work for me. Practice beforehand. Everyone's different. Variety will help, as I said. Like don't go for this the strategy of just using gel the entire session, because again, if you think about it, if you're to sit there for like a 7-hour period and just eat one food type every half an hour, what would happen? Your stomach would give up and you'd start feeling nauseous. So mixture of solids, liquids, different food types, savory, sweet, and all the rest. It's key to make sure that you're keeping your digestive system stimulated and moving things through your whole sort of body. Plan for aid stations. As I said, the mistakes that a lot of age groupers make, they try to bring everything with them. So you see these guys and they've got these really lightweight bikes, and they've got like 4 or 5 bottles. They've got like a whole 10 gels taped to the frame. Remember, the aid stations are there for a reason. So always plan that you have enough food to get through 2 aid stations. And in a sense that, because you might miss one because they can get crowded, or you might just be in too much in the moment. But always remember, you can always get the second or third one and use that to stock up. On the bike, key. On the run, absolutely must never miss an aid station on the run, because they're there for you. There's no reason why you can't just slowly pull in, jog, get the water, get the cup, and keep going. Find out what they're serving, learn how they work. As I said, especially with the bike, and check out my video in the comments below about how that works. It's how you do it safely, how they're organized. They're very standard, and there's correct ways of doing it and incorrect ways of doing it. I'll outline them how to. Practice using them safely as much as possible. Kind of difficult in your training rides unless you kind of set one up for like in your recovery week, and you sort of go like, I'm gonna cycle in and get your friend to hold out a bottle like a volunteer would, and you point and you try to grab the bottle, and will save you that awkward moment in a race where you keep on knocking bottles out of volunteers' hands, which is awkward. You get cheers, but it's not exactly what you want. You want the liquid. Timing is important as much as what you consume. And it comes back to, as I said, having alerts, reminders set up in your Garmin, your fitness wearable, that it tells you, beep, 10 kilometers done, time to eat, Stephen. Beep, 15 minutes covered. Now, was it drink something, Stephen? 30 minutes, drink something, Stephen. 45 minutes, drink something. You have to remember, race day, you will be full of adrenaline. There'll be crowds cheering. You'll be having the time of your life as long as you keep on top of your fuel. It's very easy to forget the fundamentals. You got to have this nailed down. This is why you need to know. Write it down on a piece of paper. I'm going to eat. In T1, I'm going to get a banana in. By the time I eat on the bike will be 10K in. I'm taking 2 Clif Bloxs. My first drink will be 15 minutes in. I'm taking some water first. The second time I'll do some electrolytes. It might change if you're seeing a lot of salt residue in my tri-suit. Write it down. Have it in your head. You don't need to cover it, but as long as you have a plan, it will work. Back to the key thing, just to wrap it all up in a nice little bow, is it's a Tour de France mantra. Eat before you're hungry, drink before you're thirsty. Because at that stage, when you're feeling hungry, when you're feeling thirsty, you're chasing your own tail and your race might unravel later on. So, guys, I hope that was useful. As I said, if it was, please hit the thumbs up. Do check out the other videos I have here in terms of 70.3 pacing and other transition hints and tips that will help you. I wish you the very best in the race. Make sure you do practice it in your build sessions. It will be key. Forewarned is forearmed, and have a super season.